Justin Timberlake would really appreciate my wardrobe. Look, I've got so much flannel here. Oh my god, so much flannel. I think he pretty much owns flannel now, doesn't he? Yeah. Of course, I'm wearing it right now for this review. I think I'm just gonna like leave it here, just to sort of in the background, because it's just fitting. I just need my like beanie or my Scully on to fit the whole aesthetic. So, hello. Today I'm going to be reviewing the fourth major studio album by Justin Timberlake titled Man of the Woods, which was just released this past Friday, February 2nd of 2018, as well as talking about his Super Bowl halftime performance, which was last night. So I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to actually be reviewing this record, because I'm not the hugest Justin Timberlake fan, and I also just did not really find anything that exciting or grabbing about this album to talk about. This is going to be a bit of a shorter review because I just don't have as much to say, and I don't want to just like make reviews to like like if it's an album I really don't like, I'm just not going to review it. I don't want to become a channel that like reviews negatively as well as positively. I do have some really positive things to say about this record, and that's basically what I'm going to focus on. And then I also want to talk about his performance. First of all, I will say that I was very confused by the whole promotion of this album. The album title is Man of the Woods, which we now know is titled after his son. His son is named Silas, and that means man of the forest. I believe that's in Latin. Well, it's a name that comes from Latin. So the imagery, like the album cover and some of the album promotional stuff that we saw, was hinting at this being a country record, or a more down-to-earth, rootsy, and a little bit on the spiritual side in terms of something that is looking within rather than exuberantly, being showy or flashy or glamorous. Well, gone are all those, techno sounds we would think, and the futuristic yet retro image that he embraced on Future Sex Love Sounds and the 2020 Experience. That sort of suave, Frank Sinatra, everything, it seemed to be pointing into a more Chris Stapleton direction. And Chris Stapleton is a songwriter on a few of these songs, and then there is a duet, a beautiful duet, I will say, between the two called Say Something, which is my favorite song off of this album. But we had the first single that came out, Filthy, and boy, oh boy, was I completely thrown for a loop by this first single. Not just the sound of it, but also the visuals that was released alongside it. This is a song that would have fit so well on his 2020 Experience album, or even on Future Sex Love Sounds. It has such a futuristic, wobbly bass line. It's very, at the same time, I don't know how to describe it really. It's very EDM focused. And it is something, it's a kind of groovy song that you would expect. It's very experimental. It's something I would expect from Justin Timberlake, having not, of course, known about this album and the concept of it and the album title. I knew the album was going to be dedicated to his son and his family, and I just couldn't help watching this music video where, there's basically this sex robot, like in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, at a conference, like touching women, and like, it was just this very off-putting imagery, and the lyrics are very vapid, and I mean, they're childish in my opinion, but at the same time I forgive it because it's, I don't necessarily look to Justin Timberlake's big pop songs as being like very lyrically meaningful, so I wasn't like Sexy Back doesn't have, like lyrics that you want to analyze. It's just a fun song. But there's something that just missed the mark for me with Filthy, that songs like Sexy Back had a little bit more. And yeah, I was not a fan of that song. And so it was disappointing, but it was also just more than that. It was just very puzzling. I felt a little bit like, I feel like a lot of us were like a little bit like jaded or something. We were like, you can't promote something and then like drop a song like this and be like, this is about my son. Like, this is like completely the opposite direction. This has nothing to do with nature, or it was very off-putting. But I also kind of understand that like lead singles tend to be, these big pop radio hits that you want to play, and they're usually dance leaning, and I could see how he wanted to still kind of launch this album with something that was more kin to what he's done before. But it honestly, in my opinion, even though he gets lauded for making these experimental, club songs, he's re-collaborating again with Timbaland, he's collaborating with Pharrell and also Danja, great producers who can make some amazing stuff and have done for for Justin in the past. It would have honestly been more revolutionary and more interesting if he released a song like Say Something as the lead single instead of something like Filthy. If he really wants to reinvent his image and if he wants to go a certain genre, he should commit to it and not just bounce around and kind of confusedly like embrace a whole lot of genres. Now, this is just in my opinion. We then were followed up by the next single, Supplies. This is a much more hip hop, trap inspired song. It has those ad libs, which honestly, at first, I really didn't like Supplies. Again, I was just very off put by the song. Like the lyrics are a little less vapid, so I can get into that. But at the same time, it was something I was like, this is just not really what I'm going to listen to. I have to be honest, in listening to the rest of the album, Supplies actually kind of stands out, which really surprises me now and is really an unfortunate thing because I still thought Supplies was a pretty weak song, although it does have a nice beat and groove to it, and I think the production is kind of interesting. I guess it's a Timbaland song, so I would love that kind of production. And his vocals are interesting. I mean, he has interesting harmonies on this album, which is one of the beautiful things he does with his voice. His falsettos are amazing, although he doesn't utilize that much on this song. This is a more lower register song. The music video is, again, futuristic, although it's hinting more at like an apocalyptic, post-2016 election world. And he's making social commentary about Black Lives Matter and Me Too movement, which is all really important. And again, not territory I'm not surprised to see him treading, but after Filthy, I'm just thinking, like, where is the heart and soul of this record? Like, where is the woodsy element of this album? So finally, we have Say Something with Chris Stapleton, which he released only a week ago before the album actually came out. And that was something that finally made me think, okay, I'm ready to purchase a song off this album. Like, I understand where he's going. And I wish that more of the album was in that sort of vein, the country folk Americana aesthetic with lots more live instruments. I mean, I don't mind a little bit of that Timbaland and Pharrell production in there, but the rest of this album is just this funk, disco influenced, but at the same time country twanged, limbo kind of pop music that ultimately falls flat and feels very elevator music for me. They all start to sound the same. I mean, if you list off songs like Breeze Off the Pond and Montana and Sauce, and I mean, they all sound the same. I can't distinguish a melody or something interesting about those songs that stands out. They all kind of they fall into this funky sort of country twanged soup. The production, it's not that the production's bad, it's just that it's all over the place and it doesn't know what genre to fit itself in. There are very few real highlight moments for me on this record, and like I said, Supplies and Say Something actually really stand out, and Say Something is my favorite song on the album. I can understand, Montana has a little bit of something going for it. It feels a little more cohesive as a song. But like I said, I do not understand why the song is called Montana. I don't get anything Montana-in, that's how you say it, from this song. I mean, this is an unrequited love song. Obviously, he's singing about wanting to be close to his wife. And it was written by Pharrell Williams and produced by the Neptunes, which is this old duo by Chad Hugo and Pharrell that Justin has worked with before, as well as Justin helping produce this song as well. At one part where he says, "In our shadows cast up on the mountains, it gives the stars something to watch." I can forgive, I mean, I'm not angry he doesn't mention Montana. I don't know. It feels very disingenuous to actual like folk and like rootsy country records. There's other songs where he definitely feels more like he's just covering a Chris Stapleton song, like for instance, The Hard Stuff, or Living Off the Land, where he's talking about the South. And I mean, yeah, he's from Memphis, but it's his rootsy vibe and aesthetic just doesn't, it feels very REI. It feels very like faux outdoorsy, or outdoorsy in the sense for like rich white people outdoorsy. which again, I'm not trying to, say is necessarily a bad thing. He could embrace that more fully. This is most apparent on his title track, Man of the Woods, which is definitely a painful song to listen to, in my opinion. Probably one of the worst songs, though. It's not as bad as a few others. The music video is cute and fun, and I mean, it's something to smile at, but it feels just like this costume that was just tried on. I mean, he's like walking through a forest like a lumberjack, and then he's like in a cabin at a bar and dancing. The dancing, it's cool that he's being fun, and I do sense, Justin's having a little bit of an identity crisis because he's no longer, he's 37 years old, which is not old, but he's not necessarily even wanting to be the center of media attention anymore. He's not, this undeniably like sexiest man alive type figure. He's not really even trying to push that, he's not trying to be ripped. He's not trying to, be uber sexy anymore. He's kind of just wanting to be like a dad and like cute and wear flannel shirts and a hood and a scully. It's like, okay, that's fine. You can live up to that. He's just buddies with Jimmy Fallon. He's just sort of like hanging out, and he's made his mark, and now he just wants to have fun. And like, this is an album that is about that. It's like about like a fun time at the campfire with your friends out in the woods. And I guess that's all fine. It's not really how my interpretation of what this aesthetic would have been. I mean, if I made an album named Man of the Woods, I kind of like currently have an artwork project that I'm working on, which is called Prince of the Deep Dark Wood. So when I saw that title, Man of the Woods, I was like, okay. So there's a similarity in title, but what he's doing is not what I'm doing with this project. I'm exploring the solitude and the raw power of nature, and like it's like gritty and it's dark, but it's also beautiful and escapist. And the way Justin Timberlake is treating the outdoors is it's just sort of a backdrop, like, like a backdrop you put in like a wedding picture. You're not actually there, but you have the background anyway to pretend that you're in the middle of the woods. That's what this whole album feels like. It feels like the woods are a set, which they are in the case of the Man of the Woods video. And it feels as though, it's just trying to pay homage to something, but it's very disingenuously doing so. Like I said, some of these things I can forgive. Justin Timberlake's never really been my complete cup of tea. I admit he's got some really groovy songs, and he has an amazing voice, especially in the falsetto range. And he does some great harmonies and production. But ultimately, a lot of these songs do. I mean, Midnight Summer Jam is great, but I feel like he's rehashed territory he's done before. If you remember Let the Groove Get In from 2020 Experience, I really liked that song. Midnight Summer Jam is just Let the Groove Get In 2.0. It's the same exact song for me. And I mean, I would have been excited about it if I hadn't heard Let the Groove Get In, but I've heard it already, and the song drags on a little too long, which is also something Justin does not really do well with. He makes his songs way too long. He puts all these intros and outros. He has Jessica Biel recorded. Trust me, the parts where he has Jessica Biel recorded are some of the cringiest parts of this record because of the weird sound effects he puts in the background. Instead of like a woodsy sound, it starts out sounding like she might be in the woods or something, and then it sounds like she's in some dystopian like techno world because the sounds are very ominous and strange. It's not just like birds chirping or something. I'm very confused by some of that. And again, I do admit he's taking artistic license, he's trying to be creative. I appreciate that. It just doesn't pay off very well in my opinion. So the one other song I really do want to talk about that I love is Higher Higher. This song is perfect groovy funk, but also amazingly harmonized vocals. The melody change-ups, the key changes, these are what I'm looking for from a Justin Timberlake song. They're just, they're punctuated so well. And I find the song not only inspirational and motivational, it's just fun to listen to. It's silky smooth. I don't have any problems with this song. So this is another one that I highly recommend, and another highlight for me on this record. The Morning Light, also the one other song I'll talk about with Alicia Keys, I do think is actually pretty decent. Justin's vocals are pretty damn nice. Alicia's would overpower him usually, but I think he actually does kind of steal the spotlight from Alicia, which is quite formidable. They do complement each other pretty well. It's a very slow jam R&B song, so it's not really my style, so that's why it doesn't stand out so much for me personally, but I do respect the song. Now let's talk about the Super Bowl performance. So I was very happy to see he didn't spend too much time performing new songs from this album, although I really had hoped that he would choose a different song instead of Filthy, but it kind of makes sense. He's still trying to push that song. So he opens it up, and I would must admit, at first I was worried. I was like, is he actually performing somewhere else? Was this pre-recorded? Because he's actually in a structure pretending to perform for this makeshift, this like crowd without the whole stadium around him. And then he finally comes out and starts the show, in my opinion, for the real. And he then goes through a slew of hits from Justified, Future Sex, Love Sounds. There is no NSYNC reunion, which a lot of people were hoping for. And I must admit, I do kind of wish he had done that, but at the same time, he does do a lot of songs and he covers them throughout his catalog fairly quickly. He does Sexy Back, he does My Love, which was a song I completely forgot that I actually loved from his album, Future Sex. He does perform Mirrors, and that's when he finally uses the actual stadium to his advantage, and I really like it when artists do that. It's one of my favorite things about the halftime shows is when they get the crowd involved. So they're all holding up these mirrors and using light to create a pattern. It's very mesmerizing and memorable. And then he has that Prince tribute, which we all knew was coming, whether we liked it or not. To be fair, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, Prince is from Minneapolis, so why not pay tribute to him? It's been 11 years since Prince took the stage at the halftime show in 2007. I thought, also since Justin Timberlake is so inspired by Prince, it's actually a pretty worthy matchup. I can understand, however, why some people thought it was just something that Prince wouldn't have wanted and it felt forced and like not very thoughtful to his memory. But I do think they handled it well. I didn't have a problem with it. Justin at the piano, he's a pretty strong vocalist, so he can make those Prince songs blended with his own songs sound pretty good. So I didn't have a problem with him doing this tribute, even though, again, like I said, I understand why some people did. So, of course, I knew he was going to go into the Trolls song, Can't Stop the Feeling, and I was watching this with my mother. She loves that song. I absolutely hate it, mainly because I've worked in retail and I've worked at a store that sells Trolls merchandise, and I remember hearing that song all the time at the store. It literally drove me insane, and so I just don't have good memories of that song. But it's one of those songs that just feels so cheesily happy that I kind of don't find it uplifting whatsoever or motivational. It's just me. I'm such a Grinch sometimes, I guess. But my mom was so happy to see him perform that song, and I knew he would end with it. But that selfie with the boy, and then he's on the phone, like, who is Justin Timberlake. Like, I thought that was just so funny. There's always some iconic moment, whether it's Left Shark or, whatever from a Super Bowl performance. It's MIA's middle finger. So we always have something that's very memeable. And that was, of course, what we got this time around. So all in all, I wasn't disappointed by his performance. I'm glad that he eventually did use the whole field. At the very beginning, he was sort of it was all up close and it was just on the stage. And it did feel like just kind of like a generic concert of his. But then he did break it out. He used the marching band. He used all the other things I like to see them use with the interesting sets and the lighting to create a pretty memorable show, albeit it's nowhere near as memorable or as iconic as previous shows. I mean, Lady Gaga is a tough act to follow. Oh my god, I was thinking about making a Super Bowl halftime show, like, countdown video where I talk about my favorite Super Bowl halftime shows. I decided not to. Maybe next year I'll do it. I don't know. I've only seen the ones I really like, and I guess those would be the ones I'd probably want to talk about. But Lady Gaga's last year was just so iconic and phenomenal. And yeah, Justin, I mean, I'm already not as huge a fan, so I knew it was going to be. And also, let me just say, this was one of the first Super Bowls in a long time that I cared way more about the actual game than the Super Bowl halftime show itself. As you know, I'm not a big Justin Timberlake fan, but also, I haven't mentioned, I am wearing green. I am from Philly, so the Eagles, even though I am not a football fan or a sports fan whatsoever, the Eagles winning the Super Bowl last night was a very huge, iconic moment for Philadelphia, and I am so happy for it. I mean, this was the first time I was ever emotionally invested into a football game, and it was the weirdest feeling. I literally was on the edge of my seat, especially in the last quarter. It was so close as I knew it was going to be. The Patriots are just so good, but so bad because of it. I really do not like them. And yeah, it was really, really close, but I was so elated to see them win. And I just hope that Philadelphia is still standing because of some of the videos I've seen. Oh boy, I understand people are excited, but please do not burn your own house down. And don't destroy public or private property, or public. I just don't destroy property. But anyway, people are lunatics, not just in Philadelphia, but all over the world, especially when sports comes into play. So, yeah, halftime was It wasn't bad, but it wasn't that great. I do think his vocals were a little drowned out. I think the microphone wasn't doing too good of a job. And I do think his dancing was pretty up to par. The way he danced with that microphone was pretty fun. But Man of the Woods in general, a lot of head scratching going on with this album. Let me know what you think in the comments because again, I see a lot of people saying like mixed things about it, but a lot of people are sort of agreeing that it's just like if you want to go country, but don't like do this liminal funk country weird thing in the middle. Like, I don't know, it just feels very, it feels either derivative of stuff he's done before or it feels disingenuous to genuine country music. And also, it's just forgettable. I just don't see many of these songs besides Say Something and maybe Higher Higher making their way onto playlists of mine years from now, if not even months from now. It's an album I'm just going to completely forget about. So I was a little bit more interested to see something a little bit more raw and live instrument based, but you know, we still got it in glimmers, but ultimately I just find, you know, this album to be, yeah, I think derivative is a good word. And yeah, just all over the place and not in a good way. So again, it's not the worst thing I've heard. I wouldn't be reviewing it if it were, but I respect Justin. He's not necessarily for me. He's good at what he does, and he does make fun campfire like pop funk songs. The campfire thing is because of this album theme, but normally you wouldn't say that about his music. Um, his music is always like very metropolitan. It's very like nightclub. But this time he's trying to take the nightclub to the campfire. Does it work? Not so sure. But hey, he's wearing flannel, not like a country guy would wear it. If you see the Man of the Woods music video, he's got the last few buttons unbuttoned down here. That is not how real guys wear flannel in the country, and I wouldn't know because it's not like I am one. I just wear flannel because I like it, but it just goes to show how removed he is because of his net worth, because of the fact that he's so LA in so many ways, that yeah, he's sort of removed from that kind of Chris Stapleton aesthetic a little bit. But yeah, I'm also not familiar with Chris Stapleton very much, so, but I don't know if this album necessarily, I mean, I'm not a huge country fan, so it doesn't necessarily make me want to look into it, but Chris Stapleton does stand out a lot, and the stuff that he contributed to, although he actually contributed guitar to Filthy, just completely out of his genre comfort zone, but whatever. They must be really good friends for Chris Stapleton to be like, yeah, Justin, this is a good track. I mean, I like country Americana, but I'll get down with this weird, sexy EDM song, but whatever. I'll play guitar for that. Anyway. So let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please give this video a like and subscribe if you did. I will be doing more reviews on this channel. Like I said, I review a lot of pop artists. If you're new to this channel, a lot of artists like Lady Gaga, Britney Spears, Katy Perry, also some alternative artists like Björk and Grimes and Florence and the Machine. So I hope you enjoy the content I have, and also all my social media is linked below. So thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and go Eagles.